Hey, Intro to Lit. This is vocab lesson 7, page 27 through 30, and analogies, page 129. It is entitled Observing the Natural World. Make sure you're working on the correct one. Yes, that's Tabby sighing over there. All right, our first word, let me just give you the parts of speech and explain about each word, and then we'll go to 129, okay, and do the analogies. No, and it's due later on in the week. Okay, I'm videotaping now, so everybody can hear you. Okay, so carnivorous. Carnivorous, O-U-S ending, always makes it an adjective. Okay, so the noun form is carnivore. I just got the movie Jurassic World. I love the Jurassic Park movies. I'm a big fan of those, and so we have the carnivorous dinosaurs there, right? Centrifugal. Centrifugal is an adjective. I want to check to make sure. Yeah, it is. Now, get this in your mind. Centrifugal, it is, think about the rides at Elitch's that spin around. There's one over by the wooden roller coaster, the Twister 2, and that ride, it kind of goes around a hill, but the person who is on the outside always gets squished because the centrifugal force pushes you outward, all right? You go away from the center, okay? So centrifugal forces you outward, away from the center. Okay, that's centrifugal. It's an adjective. Fauna is a noun, and flora, those are kind of connected. Remember, this is observing the natural world, and so fauna has everything to do with animals, and flora, which is also a noun, has everything to do with plants. Flora, flower, okay, that's how you remember. Okay, granular. Granular is an adjective, and we see in there grain, okay, or yeah, like grain, small, granular, so that should give you an idea of what it means. Metamorphosis is a noun, okay. Metamorphosis, we usually talk about, I guess you would talk about it in science class when you, in connection with caterpillars into butterflies. Okay, there's in literature there's a story, couple of stories that metamorphosis and talking about transformation from one thing into something else. Okay, just like when we're baptized, we are transformed from something into a child of God, something totally different. Okay. Sector. Sector is it's like a division. It's a noun. It's a section would be another way of saying it. It means the same thing as sector, just a division. Okay. Sparse. Sparse is an adjective. Okay. Did I say sector was a noun? I meant to. All right. But sector can also be a verb. I can sector you off into different teams or different groups. All right. So sector is a noun and a verb. Sparse is an adjective. Okay. Sparse means very little. Okay. Stagnant is also an adjective. Stagnant you're not moving. If you're stagnant, you're not going forward or backward. You're just where you are. Okay. Upheaval is a noun. Usually has to do with some event where it changes to there's a brouhaha or a big disaster, calamity, and so there's an upheaval, an uprising. All right. So those are our words. That should help you with page 29, I believe. Boogie on over to page 129. I'm going to talk. These are pretty easy, but what would make it easier for you is if you have your analogy cheat sheet out. And then you can see how to use that tool to help you answer these, okay? So number one, well, I want to talk about number 1 and number 5 together because they are very similar. They give you the same type of setup, okay? So number 1, fauna is a noun, rabbit is a noun. Now remember when I talked about flora and fauna, okay, because down in number 5, flora is a noun, daffodil is a noun. Well, a rabbit up in number 1 is a type or an example of fauna. Well, the way we say that in analogy land, it's a classification. If you have 2 nouns, they can't show degree. What they do show is classification. A rabbit would be classified as fauna. Go down to number 5. A daffodil would be classified as flora. Okay? Use that same template to find your answer. Okay? Australia would be classified as kangaroo. Probably not. Rosebush would be classified as vegetation. Maybe. Town would be classified as countryside. Dog, loyalty. And see, stern and stem makes no sense, right? The closest one is B, rosebush, would be vegetation. Okay? And so make sure that behind the double colon, you put the letter C for classification. Do the same thing in number 5, because a daffodil would be classified as flora. So put a C behind the double colon, all right? And then figure out what, use that same template. The second word would be classified as the first word, like color would be classified as yellow. No. Now, if it was switched around, then maybe. But here's what they're showing you. With an analogy, it has to be in the exact order. Okay? So be careful of that. Okay. Now let's go back up to number 2. Metamorphosis is a noun. Larva is a noun. Okay, so we're up in that section on your cheat sheet where it says noun and noun. These are our possibilities. I think there's 6 or 7 of them. Well, larva is one stage in metamorphosis, right? It's one part of the whole metamorphosis process, all right? So we have a part of a whole relationship, okay? So we would put PW behind the double colon because it's a part of a whole thing, okay? Number 3, sector is a noun, division is a noun, all right? So if you remember a few moments ago, I told you section or sector and division. Those mean the same thing. If we go into a company, you might, one floor might be sector 3. That's for all the artistic, graphic arts section of this company. Sector 2 might be the business portion. Or if you walk into our building, off to the right, that sector is for administration, okay? And to the left, that's for, those are the classroom. That sector is for the classrooms, okay? Number 4, carnivorous is an adjective. Tiger is a noun. You look on your cheat sheet, you see adjective noun can only be one thing. It has to be characteristic quality. So behind the double colon, put CQ for a characteristic quality. A quality that a tiger is noted for is being, every tiger is carnivorous. Okay? All right, we already did number 5, so go up to number 6. Number 6, a horde. This is a collective noun, meaning more than one person involved in a horde. Think of a zombie horde. There's more than one zombie in that horde. Okay, it's a collective noun, just like class. Numerous students, but it's class. It sounds singular, but there's more than one involved in that. But it is a noun. And what does that zombie horde look for, or what do? They wander. So wander is a verb. If you look at a person noun and a verb on your sheet, you should have one analogy that it can be, one relationship that can show. And that here we have performer action. This is what a horde does. They wander looking, zombie horde would wander looking for more brains. Okay? So behind the double colon, put PA for performer action. Okay? Number 7, centrifugal. Remember, that's our Elitch's ride, which pushes people outward. Centrifugal is an adjective. Outward is an adjective. You can tell by that sentence. They mean the same thing. Okay? Number 8, stagnant is an adjective. Moving is an adjective. If the water is stagnant after the rain, you may have some standing water, like on a sidewalk or something, okay, where it's level, so it's just stagnant. Or the water from the rainwater could be running down the street if there's a tilt, so it's moving. All right, so stagnant, not moving. If the rain's going downhill, it's moving. Those are opposites. All right, stagnant is just standing still. Okay, that's why in the summer, people want to get rid of stagnant water because mosquitoes get there, and then we have the West Nile threat and all of that, so you never want to have stagnant water because it invites mosquitoes and bugs and disease and all that. Number 9, irony is a noun. Contrast is also a noun in this particular analogy. And I know that because the answers are nouns too. All right, and because I have to find a match, they have to be the same part of speech. Okay, so when we looked at the definition of irony, one aspect of irony is that element of contrast, the element of contrast between what we think is going to happen and what does happen. So one aspect of irony, one part of the whole concept of irony is contrast, all right, between what's expected and what really happens, all right? And so we see how contrast is part of the whole idea of irony, okay? So that's a part of the whole relationship. So PW behind the double colon. And our last one. Tolerate is a verb. Endure is a verb. All right. Now, both of these somewhat mean the same thing. All right. Tolerate and endure kind of mean the same thing. But tolerate adds some emotions to it. All right. Tolerate means there's like added frustration to it. If you endure, sitting in the rain, all right. If you that's one thing, but if you tolerate it, there's that added element of frustration. You're still enduring, but there's emotion attached to it. All right, and so that bumps us up to a degree relationship. All right, if there's any extra emotions attached to one of the words, then that bumps it up to a degree relationship. All right, so it's one thing to endure something. It's a whole other thing to tolerate it. All right, because you could just sense that frustration in it as well. All right, so that's a degree relationship. So behind the double colon, put a D. Okay, hope this helps you out, and we'll see you next week.